looking at here is a heater most people would have thrown straight in the scrap pile. But I got this thing running better than when it was actually new. I'm going to show you guys how exactly and what I did. But first I want to go over a few things with you. I want to show you the functionality of the turbo heater, salamander, whatever you want to call it. This way here, show you what they're normally supposed to do, what each feature on this does. This way here, when I get to showing you how I changed the primary control, it will be a lot easier for you to understand what I did. But I do have a quick disclaimer. This involves electricity, fuel, and fire. I'm showing you what I did. This is for entertainment purposes only. If you decide to mess with one of these heaters, that's on you. Remember, safety first. All right, let's get started pulling this apart. All right, I took out a few screws just to make it a little faster. All right. Okay. And they gotta pop off primary control. Make sure you undo the electric. Don't want any problems with that. Let's see. All right. So I took the cover off. This is where your board would be, on the control board, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it a control board, circuit board, whatever it is. It's the brain to the operation. So it tells everything what it needs to do, how it needs to do it, and when it needs to do it. And it needs to know if it's happy or not. So the primary control took over those operations, but I'll show that to you in a minute. And so now this version uses electrodes. And then down underneath the motor, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, right there is the coil pack for the spark. And then you got the CAD cell, and that has to see the fire to know everybody's happy. So we need the CAD cell, we need ignition, now the fuel source. So back here on here, there's an off-centered circle and a rotor that goes in there with 4 vanes. And basically, as it spins around, the vanes come out and then get compressed back in. And if they do, they push air pressure through here. Now this version has a gauge on the back side of it. As you can see, I definitely recommend, if you ain't got a gauge, sorry about the fingers in the video. If you don't have a gauge, I'd get one, Amazon. So as you screw the second port in, it has a spring and a ball, and you screw it in, it brings up more pressure. You back it out, it drops pressure. Online, you can find out what the pressure is supposed to be adjusted at. Now remember, when you do adjust the pressure though, you have to have all the covers on it and stuff like that. And then this fan does combustion air, but that also is what spins the rotor. Now, the part that I'm going to point out so you guys know is this right here is the air pressure. It goes through, drops underneath, comes through, and pops back up. It's going to be the bigger hose of the two. So what it does, the air comes in here and creates a negative draw, like a ventry, and then right here, the fuel comes up, comes through, kind of gets atomized with the air, and then goes out the nozzle. And then with the spark, it fires up. And once it sees it's going, CAD cell says, hey, we're still up and running. We're doing great. But make sure all these hoses don't have any cracks in them and stuff, because if it cannot get air pressure to that, it will not draw fuel up. And a lot of times the fuel hose gets cracked, which then obviously trying to drink your soda with a crack in the hose doesn't work. It'd be about the same effect there. All right, so there's that part. And if you wouldn't mind, I'll take a second and just say, if you guys like this kind of fixing of things, instead of just throwing them in the trash, if you want, hit the subscribe button. I'm always tinkering with some of this stuff, and I have fun doing it, and I enjoy the subscribers and stuff, working on getting the channel monetized, and I appreciate every one of you that do subscribe and stuff. So thank you very much for that. All right, so let's get to what you guys came here for. All right, so the primary control I am using, spin it around so you can see it. There's the number on it. That's the one I'm using. And the reason I like this one is, as you can tell, it comes with the pigtails that are color-coded, and it's labeled. So pretty much you can't mess it up. So let me go over to primary control. I'm just going to get it to stay put for a minute. A lot of stuff here trying to show you. There we go. All right. I did have to put a 4x4 box on here. So after I pulled the board out, and it's got like a tensiometer dial for the temperature. But the problem is they kind of suck. These things stink. They're loud. And they're really, really a pain to have next to you when you're working on something. So for me, when the board died, I was trying to figure out, kind of like in a mad scientist way, how could I make this thing so I could keep it by the garage door, have the garage door open to let fresh air in, and keep it as far as possible away from me so I didn't have to smell it or go deaf listening to it. Problem is, it had probably a 20-degree temperature differential. So it would roast you and then freeze you, roast you and freeze you. So with me putting this control on, I'm able to run at the far end of the building a thermostat with wire running back to it. And the thermostat I had a 5-degree differential. So it was able to keep the area I was working comfortable and keep this machine away from me. And the other thing that was great about this primary control is if it sees a fire in the chamber and it's established a flame, it will then keep it running. But if it falls out for some reason, say you get a hiccup or something happens, this control here, after 60 seconds of it going out, will try to refire, which is pretty awesome when you're underneath a tractor or something. You don't have to crawl back out and hit the stupid power switch and turn it back on and reset it. It's a real pain in the butt. So this control will reset it. I think it'll do it twice, which is another cool feature. All right, so what I had to figure out here, now all my L2s were neutrals on everything, and I had gotten the CAD cell pigtails. So with the pigtails, I was able to just cut that CAD cell wires, and it's kind of hard in the box, wire tie them to here. So now this control can actually see that there's a flame. So now it's happy. And then this acts as a burner motor. So basically, this is kind of like running a number 2 oil burner motor. It's pretty close to the same. It does have a few differences, like burner motor has a pump on it. This just uses an air pump instead of an oil pump. So same concept, just a little different design. So basically, this motor has to turn in order for the rotor to turn to create pressure, which then creates suction and causes the fire. Okay, so with that, I then had to take the burner motor and I had to power up the burner motor onto here, which was labeled motor on the control. And off the board, this was the main power that ran up there to turn that on. So I was able to run that yellow wire, that turns that on, does what it's supposed to. Now, the power lead coming in comes in here. Well, this primary control is made to run either furnaces or boilers. So you got 2 wires. You have L1, which is the power wire, and then you have the limit. And the limit would be when the boiler says, hey, I need to run, and it would tell it to run. We're not using it as a boiler, we're using it as a furnace. So what we ended up doing is we tied the black and the red together to the power source. So the control is always powered when power's on. So that makes that nice and happy. And it'll stay powered up, turn the switch on, it'll power up, but it won't do anything because it's set up to run off thermostat. I'll show you how I did the configuration for that in a minute. Now, the blue gets hooked in to my coil pack there. So basically, where on a number 2 boiler, it's telling the igniter to spark, same concept, it's making that spark. So that's how those all hooked up. Let me move a couple things around. I'll show you a couple more things, and then we'll start putting it together, and I'll show you how it all fits together with the programming. All right, I had to flip this out so I could show you. There's a diagram back here. Kind of gives you an idea what it does. So once you understand the primary control and you understand this, it makes it a lot easier figuring it out. Some of these wires are just pigtailed longer. So on the motor, I had what is the power, the neutral, and then the 2 capacitor wires. So I had to leave the capacitor alone and then just power up the motor. So I was able to do that. The igniter, as it came out from under the igniter, like I said, I just lengthened that to the red wire and connected it in there. This was the temperature probe for reading the temperature, which is pretty stupid because it's mounted up in here where this is hot. So it had no idea what the actual temperature outside was, only what this inside was. Pretty dumb design, but don't need that no more because I was running the thermostat. All right, let me put this cover back on real quick. All right, I got the cover plate back on. And like I said, the 4x4 box, I just put it over the top with the temperature control switch ran the wires through. If I had the correct color-coded wires, it would have been easier for me, but I used what I had, so I just had to keep remembering what wire went to what. So let me slap this primary control back on, but like I said, I needed the 4-inch box because the primary control, as you can see here, all these stick out. It wouldn't sit flat without it. So now with the box, it does, and I can stuff the wires in. All right, I'm gonna get the primary control back on, and I'm gonna get the cover back on the top, and then I'll show you the programming that I was doing. All right, I have the control all hooked back up. This is temporary thermostat wire. I just wanted to wire up a temporary thermostat so you can see how it's done. So now it's hooked up. I'm gonna turn the power switch on. Sorry, the control's upside down, but it was the only way I could really read it. I just hit this button once so it lights up so you guys can see it. So now it's in standby mode. So now I had to set this control up to do what I wanted it to do. So I had to push the 3 buttons and hold them. It's kind of a little pain. And as you can see, it went into installer setup. So I kind of want to continue through it. I wanted it in English. I don't speak any of the other languages. Valve on, I didn't need that because I wasn't using this as a furnace or a boiler number 2 system. Let's see, ignition trial. So I wanted 15 seconds on this because I have an igniter or basically a spark plug. If I had the glow plug style igniter, I would probably put that closer to probably 30 seconds. That way I knew it would have enough time to heat up and then fire. Another note about the glow plug style ones, if you do have them, don't shut them off and move them right away. Let them cool down because they're brittle when they're hot, and I've seen a lot of them break. They're not too bad, 20 bucks on Amazon. A lot of the rest of the parts outside of this control board is pretty cheap on Amazon. All right, so burner off delay, I didn't need that. Let's see, thermostat configuration, no. Basically, that's just putting a jumper across here. That would be basically when this thing's told to run by turning the power on, it will run until it's out of fuel. You could just put a jumper on there if you're going to take it outside, is what I thought. And when I'm in the shop, I just hook it up to the thermostat so it's more controllable. And it's easy enough. I have a little jumper here that I just put that in place there. If I'm running it outside, try to heat a piece of equipment. Let's see. Spark in on delay. Yes, I put that on because I wanted it sparking before it fired, or basically turn the motor on and put fuel into the chamber. spark during run. I did want the spark during run because these things are a little finicky. And if they get like a little pocket of air or a little sputter, there's no spark, the thing goes out and then it trips off. If spark stays constant, if it gets a little sputter or hiccup, it'll just pick up itself and keep running, which I liked about that. Yeah, let's see. Basically, allowed resets. So basically soft lockouts. You can reset it 3 times before it goes into a hard lockout. And then the control, there's a way to unlock them. You'd have to read the paperwork on that. I'm not going to tell you how to do it because if you don't know what you're doing, you definitely shouldn't go past the 3 nominal resets. Let's see. So it's oil boiler, furnace, and hot water heater. This is basically a furnace style, so I set it onto furnace. Show diagnostics. This way here, if I have to go through it, I can figure out what's going on with it, what the CAD cell's doing, how it's reading, all that stuff. So I definitely want to be able to see the diagnostics. Helps me to figure out what's going on with it if there's a problem. Let's see. So basically, the installer setup is done. So I'm just going to quit out of it. And I'm not really sure what that is. Okay, so standby basically for me means that it's waiting for a command. And let's see. So if I take the thermostat and I'm just going to turn this on. And when I do, watch this. And what it'll do is it'll have a countdown, which is basically the ignition making spark. Then when the countdown stops, it'll turn on the motor, which then creates the vacuum for the fuel and fires up. Then it'll tell me flame is proven, which means it sees a fire, and it'll give me ohms. And low number ohms means it's a bright, nice fire. So let's get this thing fired up. Clicked on. Calling for heat. And it goes back to standby. I'll turn it on one more time. And shut it off. It's pretty slick how it works. Hopefully you guys understand what I did and see how I did it. Give you kind of an idea of how I think I fixed it. But, you know, at the end of the day, guys, if you enjoy problem solving and stuff, I like to do a lot on this channel like that. I believe in using my brain over my wallet. Instead of just paying to buy things, I like to make them or try to fix them and solve them. If you do have something you're stuck on, throw it in the comment section. I'll see if I can figure it out. Maybe between the two of us, we could figure a solution to your problem. So that's it for this video. I appreciate you guys stopping by, and hopefully you come back for another video. Thank you.